Welcome to the Sleeping Barber podcast.
We have a great show for you today. We welcome Ty Heath, Director of Market Engagement at the B2B Institute for LinkedIn. We talk about opportunities for marketers and geek out on the Contrarian model. And don't forget, stick around to the end for the post-pod discussion with your hosts, Mark and V.
Welcome to the Sleeping Barber podcast, a place for business leaders to get the best and most credible information on marketing, strategy, and innovation. Your hosts, Mark Binkley and Vasilis Douros, share their experiences as they gather insights from the world's leading experts. Now, on with the show.
Welcome to the show today. We have Ty Heath. Ty, we are so excited you're here.
Thanks for having me.
This is great. So Ty, you are the Director of Market Engagement at the B2B Institute at LinkedIn, a board member for the American Advertising Federation, the Global Industry Advisor. You're also on the Global Industry Advisory Council, the Digital Marketing Institute, and now you're on the Sleeping Barber podcast. So
Yes.
welcome to the show. You can add that to the rest.
Oh, adding it to the list. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Ty.
This is going to be great. We're, so really excited about this, as a theme overall. I mean, you guys have done so much great work. And so we're trying to figure out how to package this conversation. And I think where we landed is a lot on the structure and the function of B2B sales and marketing teams. It's such a hot topic. There's a lot of change happening in B2B marketing overall. And you guys are kind of leading a lot of that. So we're really excited to have you here.
Yeah, we love doing this work at the B2B Institute. We just get to be curious. We get to be geeky. We get to think about the future of the B2B marketing innovation agenda. So yes, that's what we're all about.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys honestly have so much stuff you've produced in the last, I don't know how long exactly, but in the last 5-6 years kind of thing, it seems to me, where you've really ramped up.
Right. We actually just came up on our 5-year anniversary of our longest standing franchise, which is called B2B Trends for the Contrarian Marketer. So I kind of use that as an index of time for us at the B2B Institute. So I know we'll talk about trends and things a little bit more, but that's one of our favorite things, just exploring, one of those little known things that can provide a lot of value.
Yeah, and on the website, and we'll put links into the show notes and stuff, but in the website, you've got like marketing to the CFO, how B2B brands grow, which is a lot of partnership work that you guys have done with the Ehrenberg Bass Institute.
Right.
The 2030 trends. There's things like the objectivity trap. I mean, there's so many great, I don't know if you call them franchises, but like there's like really well thought out and researched and articulated, let's call them franchises for now, but it's so cool. Can you tell us more about why you guys are going down this approach and what's motivating this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we get to partner with leading practitioners and academics to really explore how marketing can create more value. And I think what we're out to do is do the hard work of thinking through things and making sense of things for marketers using the research, insights, and data. We really want to promote what we call convention breaking ideas that shift the way that people think about marketing, and also at the intersection of societal issues and behavioral science. And so we really are focused on figuring out where the B2B category is going. And there's a quote, I don't actually know who said this, we'll have to look it up, but it says, if you want to determine the future, you create it. What we're really looking to do is help set the agenda for the B2B category based on what we see. And, at the center of how we find the good ideas that we think will make a difference in marketing is a mental model called the Contrarian Matrix. And have you heard of this?
Well, I've heard you guys talking about it.
Exactly.
Contrarian and right.
Yes,
and
that's right. That's exactly. So, fundamentally, we know that in any decision you make in life, you can be right or wrong. You can be contrarian or consensus. And in other words, you can do what everyone is doing or what no one else is doing. But if you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're with the crowd and
Mm-hmm.
there's not really a ton of value to be created there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are against the crowd and you're wrong, there's no value there either. What we want you to do, simply put, is what no one else is doing and be right about it.
Mm-hmm.
That way you can capture the upside of that decision. And so we know that big organizations really tend to focus and converge on consensus ideas. And what we're trying to do is identify the contrarian ideas that when invested in will make a big difference. That's where the value can be created for businesses. And we know that's not easy, because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, and there wouldn't really
it would be consensus.
But yeah, so we're really out to, find those interesting ideas that are contrarian and right, and help people, find that edge for themselves.
Note to self, Mark, this is what we're doing wrong.
Oh.
We go against, but then we're wrong. So I mean,
contrarian and wrong. You're right. You're halfway there.
There's the other part of the matrix that we have to figure out.
We got to figure the other side out. To be a fly in wall in one of those brainstorm sessions, Ty, that would be amazing.
Nice.
So, like in the contrarian matrix, and we'll get into this a little bit later too, but V and I have been chatting a lot about, like, is marketing in trouble? And so the contrarian matrix is kind of an interesting idea, because I feel like in marketing especially, there's a herd of people doing the same kind of things because they think that's the right thing. And then you guys have uncovered a whole bunch of these sort of myths about the way things actually are, and not the way things we think they are.
Yeah, we want marketers to win. We recognize there's a lot of blind spots, and there's also untapped potential. And I think so. Roger Martin, I think you've spoken with him before, I believe. And there's this really great quote that he said. He said, if you want to be big in any industry, you have to take a proprietary interest in the health and welfare of the industry as a whole. So I really believe that. And I think if we're going to talk about category health, and if we're really going to mean that, it means we have to constantly be looking out for what actually works. We have to educate clients, marketing agencies, partners, and equip people with better frameworks and tools to drive growth for business. It's such a wide open space. And it's not about, telling people you're wrong. It's just about revealing ideas, that, for whatever reason have been overlooked, or because certain things in our society are in place, people tend to go in a particular direction without questioning. So, it's really, I would love to see, 1 year or more from now, many more marketers embracing some of these things that we see really drive long-term value. For example, we've really embraced this idea of brand building and creativity for long-term value creation for business. And we believe that's a area right now where there's underinvestment, and that's one of the areas we really have been focusing on transforming.
I have to ask, Ty, the way you answer that question, I get, at least in my mind, what came to mind is the fact that, what is our blind spot then as marketers? What are you seeing, like right now with all of the franchises that are coming out, all the research that you guys are putting together? What seems to be the biggest area or flawed area as marketers as we kind of like navigate this space?
Yeah. I think it comes back to those two big ideas. And there's actually a piece that we put together called 2030 Trends. And that is a compilation of what we see as like the three big ideas to explore for marketers to really explore, to transform, long-term value.
Right.
I think, a couple things I would say in terms of what people should be looking at. I think investing in share of voice. So what I mean by that is like really looking at how you're reaching the entire category.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're so focused on hyper targeting
Mm-hmm.
that we're missing out on a huge opportunity to reach people that you may not even know are in the market for your business. We have to do better at balancing brand marketing and activation marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have to rethink the way we look at loyalty strategies. That's not going to grow business.
Mm-hmm.
We're reach maximalists at the B2B Institute.
Mm-hmm. I love that
How
phrase.
we like to put it. And we recognize that strategies based on broad reach appeal to much more buyers. We want to reach as many buyers as possible. There's this idea of mental availability.
Yeah,
And
that's a good one.
it's being remembered. And so we know that it was Daniel Kahneman that said that the brain is largely a machine for jumping to conclusions. So we have to focus on memory.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that? It's brand, distinctive assets, emotion, you know, and that brings me to that last part. We could bring more emotion to our advertising. That's part of being remembered. And just remembering that people aren't making decisions always based on like rationality. You know, we're human. So, you know, a lot of things that drive our decision are, you know, we like to call it satisficing. We're looking for like, what's the best thing that I can find given all the things going on in my life right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I named a couple things, but a lot of those concepts are captured, you know, within the 2030 trends report. That's our goal. Those are our gold standard trends that we think when you invest in those ideas, those are things for the long term that really can make a difference for you.
I really appreciated what you said, and you didn't call it performance marketing. You called it, you know, activation marketing. I think Mark and I agree in the context that performance marketing is somewhat misleading because it's implying that marketing isn't performance oriented.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm glad you said that. Yeah. Because I think we need to like help people understand that investing in brand is
performance.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm super excited about like digging into all this stuff, and so let's start on the structure side. I mean, in B2B, B2C, there's a lot of similarities. The one thing that's different in B2B is the sales force that you don't really have in B2C. And so structurally, a B2B department, a marketing department, is very different than a B2C department. But how they work and like whether it's brand and activation, I mean, those kinds of things are very similar. So from a B2B point of view, does the orientation of a company change how it performs? Like whether it's marketing led or product led or sales led, or you know, there's that phrase like marketing driven, sales led, or sales driven market. I don't even know what the difference is, but you hear that kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah, I think everybody's looking for that special sauce. Like, how should I set up my company, and what's the best way? You know, I think we need to rethink that completely.
Yeah.
You know, in the optimal performance of any business, it can't be sales versus marketing versus product versus, you know, which organization leads. It's got to be, how do we show up together? And that may sound very Pollyanna of me to say, but I stand on that because I think that business today calls for a new breed of leaders.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy for organizations to get siloed and for people to focus on, you know, what are the outcomes my department to drive? What are the win? How do I win? You know, and I think we should be thinking, how do we win together? What does win look like? How do we develop shared outcomes? How do we build trust and establish better communication between the different departments? But that's hard stuff. Requires a lot of like leaders to have, you know, integrity, intention, unwavering purpose, you know, clear values, patience. And, you know, I think the reason why I say this, and it always comes back to like brand building for me and for our team, but over the past 20 years, there's been a growing appreciation for the intangible assets that underpin
Mm-hmm.
the financial value of corporations brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these are assets that can be bought and sold, and they're generally worth far more than the corporation's tangible assets.
Yeah.
And every single department, every single person
Mm-hmm.
within your company is responsible for brand building and how your brand is perceived from every I don't care if you're in marketing or not, everyone is
Mm-hmm.
responsible. And so when you start to look at it that way, it does mean that we all have to think about what does it mean for us as an entire company to be the stewards of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think it means that marketing has a unique role to play in terms of like what is the work to be done, because you're talking about building brand, generating brand, capturing latent demand, managing brand perception, even down to talent brand and
Totally.
and how internal employee perception. So that makes it a bigger conversation. So anyway, a roundabout way of saying that everybody's responsible, and if everyone's responsible, then we do have to break down the walls between the different departments.
Mhm.
How do we do that? Not easy.
Yeah.
Not easy.
The job to be done.
There was there's a company in Calgary actually where V and I are from called Smart Technologies, and there was an HBO article about them recently because they changed their sales, marketing, and customer service department to be aligned to the customer journey. So there's no longer sales, marketing, customer service. There's just like the learning department. So the customers who are trying to figure out how to learn about there's that portion of the company, and then people who are trying to figure out how to pick a selection. I think there's a portion of the team that's dedicated towards selection, and then all the way through the customer journey. So kind of things like that I think are interesting because it's a little bit of a reality reflecting on what you're saying. Right?
It's just ripe for innovation. That whole space is ripe for innovation. Like we need to find the organizational behavior and all the organizational structure academics and let's really look at that.
Mm-hmm. I have to ask, when listening to you talk about brand and how it's everyone's responsibility, Mark and I a few weeks ago we produced a podcast where we talked about brand, and we talked a little bit about where does brand live. And notoriously brand lives in marketing, right? It's kind of like marketing's responsibility, but the way you imply brand, it's everyone's responsibility. Shouldn't brand live outside of marketing? Could still report to CMO potentially, but should it not live outside? Because I think what happens is, my opinion, is that if it just lives under marketing, then it becomes like marketing becomes the brand police. Marketing is the one that's constantly consulted, which may not be a bad thing. But on the other hand, it doesn't make it tangible for a lot of other departments in a company. So would you believe that brand should be pulled outside of marketing and have its own kind of team working outside of it, maybe even reporting to CEO or to CMO, or does it still naturally live in marketing?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Thinking out loud here, I think that marketers have a unique view of the customer, and because we can do market research, because we are in control. Well, we should be, and we can talk more about this. There are a number of value creation levers that marketers can drive.
Right.
I still think that there's a stewardship role. I think there has to be an accountability within the marketing department for how the brand is being built.
Okay.
For marketing, I think it's really important that we realize that we are responsible for understanding how our customers perceive and receive value. I think for a marketer, that's probably the most important and distinctive asset.
That's fair.
I don't think, and again, I don't think that can be replicated by other departments. It can't be replicated by sales. It can't be replicated by finance. Now, that I think there are some changes that need to happen in the marketing organization to get us closer to that. So, for example, in many organizations, the sales team exclusively owns the customer relationship.
Right.
And I think that what happens then is it fundamentally weakens the marketer's potential to find additional and new revenue streams.
That's an interesting
So
point.
I think, marketers, and I mentioned earlier, marketers have is the research skill set. It tends to the market research skill set.
Right.
When you don't have control or have a market research budget.
Yeah.
And this is a particular issue in B2B, often there's no budget there, and it's perceived that the organization already knows the market and doesn't need any additional research. We're good to go. But, I think there's a case to be made for, the primary research. We just because we have all this digital data doesn't mean that we know all the things. And so I think, a lot of the things that the strengths that marketers have are not being leveraged the way they could be.
Yeah.
And if we can have that be true, then I think there needs to be an accountability that sits in marketing. But let's be clear about the role that other parts of the business play, which means that we have to have a language of communicating what the responsibilities are and how things are going.
Yeah.
So long answer, but it's
great.
really interesting. I still think it sits with marketing for those reasons. If we can have marketers, really lean into the things that I think have over time been sort of siphoned away from marketing.
Well, interesting that you talk about market research as an example, because I mean, going back, one of my favorite lines, because I spent half my career in sales, so I was the commission sales guy, and that's how I made a living for a while. And so I fully appreciate where salespeople are coming from, because if you don't kill it, you don't eat.
Yep.
And so, but then you have this sort of sense of talking about structure and function, right? Sales and marketing go together like peas and carrots. And then you have these the war between sales and marketing. I mean, literally, it's an article in HBR from 30 years ago. Then you have Glengarry, Glen Ross, where it's, the leads are weak, you're weak, coffees for closers. It's like that. This is long-standing history of marketers and salespeople that just have to work together, but they don't like each other. Or not that they don't like each other, but they don't always agree. And then you look at something like market research and you go, okay, well, if marketing is going to do that, then it has to be about sales, because there's just such an alignment there. But then if you think about, when you were talking, it made me think about also when it comes to brand, if you're thinking about the role of brand in research, it's not just about customers, what we can sell them today. Like the research could be for product, it could be for talent, it could be for So market research on its own isn't necessarily, it could be run by marketing, but it can serve multiple departments in the business as well.
100%. Yes. So you are, there's a lot that goes into what people would characterize as the opposite sides of the fence. Maybe a bit of a breakdown in the relationship there between sales and marketing. There's human behavior, or how an organization is designed, the culture of an organization, the organization's leadership and how they stand, whatever change management efforts are going on, incentives, how are people incentivized? There's a whole host of things that each organization would need to look at to begin to understand what's happening there. And that's absolutely the work of a leader. I think at the core of everything, though, we're human. So going back to that, but it comes down to trust.
Right.
And, I think for a leader that's trying to figure out how to bring sales and marketing together, it may, if you're a marketer, I think it helps to maybe think about it as a you could think about it as a funnel or as a spectrum of a customer journey in
Mm-hmm.
terms of your relationship with sales, finance, or any other
Mm-hmm.
organization. You could say, is it strong? Is it tense? Is it difficult?
Mm-hmm.
Is it healthy? Is it distance? Where are we on the spectrum? Is it evolving or is it a mature
Mm-hmm.
Right.
relationship? And then how do you get from what are the things in the things that I just named earlier that need to be addressed in order to move things forward? So I know I'm not pretending that relationships exist on a purely linear basis, but I think we can apply some of the same models in terms of relationship building and
Mm-hmm.
nurturing and to think about how we start to bring things together. And that final endpoint being that colleagues that trust each other,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
understand complementary skill sets and
Mm-hmm.
how we can work better together,
Right.
that there are natural opportunities to collaborate, that there is better information sharing. So information flow, conversations are happening, and
Mm-hmm.
support, real support is happening. So for example, a marketing person going in to sell with a salesperson, or
Mm-hmm.
a salesperson contributing insights to marketing.
Right.
So, healthy tensions will always exist.
Sure.
But, if you are consistently working on it, you can get the relationship to a more mature place, which I think that's the goal for us all.
A lot of your materials talked also
Mhm.
about something very simple, which is just creating like shared KPIs.
Yes.
Very simple concept.
Mhm.
Why do you think it's still one of the most difficult things to do?
Yeah, shared outcomes help a lot. But that it also means that you have to be accountable. And I think that's what makes it difficult. That, and also I think folks are not always clear on what those outcomes is, not clear on what the outcomes should be, and then don't take the time to think about, well, what are our shared outcomes together?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the extra step of then saying, okay, these are the outcomes that we've discussed and we agree on. We're going to set forth together. And I think it's those things, and in particular, accountability, because put simply, accountability breeds trust. And, when speaking specifically about marketing, when we're accountable for value creation, it means that we can start to look at more areas of the marketing mix outside of promotion and communications. It means that we can look to product development and be more involved in customer experience. We can look at, what are the indicators that predict the health of the business and look at how marketing can drive value there. So there's no one KPI. It's going to be ecosystem of KPIs, but we have to agree on what are we trying to do together. And, going back to our conversation earlier, I think there needs to be a more common language between groups, in particular for marketers to think more from a financial standpoint.
I was going to ask you about that because
Yes.
it's like, because you guys have produced material around this, and I know it's a piece, like a thought leadership pillar that you're kind of landing
Right.
on it. And so it's also like, if you're always being pulled towards sales, there's probably balance to go towards finance too, is like a yin yang kind of thing, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think people forget that finance is making a lot of decisions. Like
all of them.
Forget, like they are making decisions. Like, will I get headcount? Like, what will where is the investment going? And so it's not just sales that we need to manage the relationship with better and invest in. It's also finance. And I think where marketers and financial leaders can come together is that we both have a shared goal, and that is we are both focused on driving future revenue. Right? But marketers are externally focused, and going back to what we were saying, like what are the unique things that marketers have, and therefore where the accountability should lie. Marketers tend to have a better view and focus on the market of the whole as a whole, and then
Mm-hmm.
also critically the customer. And so that's really what should drive, it's that understanding of the customer that should enable marketers to unify and focus efforts and really, have that a better relationship with finance. And then, if you kind of look at the industry right now and you see what's, especially in B2B marketing, because that's our specialty.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons that activation marketers have been so successful is that they're already using very financial language to frame up their work, right? So
Yeah.
you're already talking about cost per acquisition, sales qualified leads, revenue attribution, pipeline velocity. And so if you think about long-term value creation, now we're talking about brand building. But
Mm-hmm.
brand marketers do not sound like CFOs. We jokingly say brand marketers sound more like astrologists. Just like, how does it feel, and like what is the
Yeah.
voice and the tone of it all?
Yeah.
Not so not trying to
Man.
be not trying to be rude, but it's
No.
we if we're going to build that area of marketing, we have to have a shift in how we're speaking about it to our
Yeah.
colleagues in finance. Because another joke we have, it's like Rory Sutherland said, it's like talking about the healing power of crystals. That's how we're coming off
Yeah. Yeah.
to our colleagues in finance. And so
Totally.
that needs to transform, and that's why we're not seeing the investment on the brand side as much.
Yeah.
And we really do believe that the brand marketing is the best investment a firm can make.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, V.
I was just going to say it's also the most valuable asset an organization has, but it's one thing that you can't really add a value. You can. There's ways to value a brand, but I think I loved your analogy there of being like astrologists, where we're literally trying to explain these situations to finance, accounting, to sometimes even right to the CEO. That and most CEOs come from that financial background.
exactly.
So then what happens is you sound like you're just the coloring department. You know what? Just you go do you. It's okay. But what's lost is the actual impact it has downstream.
That's right.
Or driving future revenue. And I think that's what as marketers we have to change. And there is a science here. We just, for being great storytellers, we cannot tell this story the right way.
It is an area of opportunity for
100%.
Absolutely.
So, on that note, like, part of the contrarian trends you guys talk about, shifting gears a little bit between structure and function. Like, we've got models that guide behavior. And then thinking about the financial model and the sort of the astrologists that are out there, we say things like mofo, tofu, bofu, right? And like, and you're like literally in a boardroom saying these things, but that's not future cash flows we're talking about. We're talking about, top of mind awareness,
Exactly.
which is what, like, who knows what that really even means. But you guys so when you think about how models shape behavior, there's the sales and marketing funnel, which has been around literally since 1898, I think it was, that it was invented. You guys came up with a slightly different, and there's lots of models that I know exist, but what I really like about your future cash flow model is it kind of takes the ADA funnel and flips it on its side. But maybe you can just explain a little bit about that, because I think it's so smart. Yeah, I'm butchering it.
Yeah, the reason why so the funnel is like one of the most recognized mental models of all time, and it deserves respect. We wanted to remix it a little bit to align with how should you communicate this to the finance department and to others to kind of understand like more of a business oriented look at it. And it starts with the real value of brand is the effect on future cash flows. So we know from this work that brand effects, last longer, but they also compound over time. And if so we like to take this funnel and we flip it on its side. And the core idea, if you think about it, then is the funnel has become stretched out. And now we're looking at over time. There's like a time horizon here now on the funnel. So understanding at the core that most buyers are going to be future buyers. So you can build your business. There are some people that are ready to make a decision and buy now. But if you really think about it, the majority of those buyers lay somewhere in the future, not at the top or bottom of some imaginary funnel. And they're either in market, so ready to do something now, or they're out market.
Right.
And there's a myth. You can't move buyers in market with your advertising, which is what the top and bottom of the funnel implies, which is why we think it's better to look at flipping the funnel on its side. And when you focus your lead generation or your activation marketing on the buyers who are in market now, but then on the other side, I hope everyone's still following me in your mind, but you then heavily invest in your brand and your reach to prime future buyers, the out market buyers, which are the biggest segment of the market and the source of your future cash flows. And so we really feel like this is a much more customer centric take on the funnel. So you think in market, out market, current cash flows, future cash flows. Out of market buyers deliver future cash flows, which is how companies are valued. And so that's why we really, and if you want to see a visual representation of this, we have a trend called the 95-5 rule. And that is on our b2binstitute.org website, where you can actually see how this works in practice. And there's a really fun story there where it talks about two famous advertising executives, and one says to the other, I saw an ad for Aston Martin and I bought this car. And the other one says, well, Aston Martin hasn't been advertising for years. What are you talking about? And it turns out that the first ad executive actually saw the ad when he was 5 years old. So the point we're making there is that the best ads drive sales over long periods of time. They build memories that influence future buyers. So he wasn't in market for a long time. He was out market. They may be out market today, but they'll be in market at some point in the future.
The 595 rule, like as an aside, where I worked previously, we did market research for different industries, and it's pretty accurate. Like we tested of the people who were in market in different categories, in 2 or 3 different categories. And it was like somewhere between 5 and 10% of the people that we surveyed were in market, and it's statistically significant numbers. And then 90 to 95% of the people were out of market. So it would be in a B2C world, that would have been anywhere from like, I'm thinking of buying in the next 3 to 6 months versus 6+ months from now.
So true. Yeah. And I mean, I think to like bring it home, like if you think about, especially if you're in B2B, right? Has your business made a significant purchase recently, like a new phone system or a software vendor, or signed a contract with IT, or even like new carpet for the office? If that's true and that has happened, then you're not going to be in market for some time for that particular item. So it's going to be a while. So the time between purchases can be quite long. And that's why we have, in particular for B2B, we have to be thinking about this 95-5 rule, and how are we priming, and how are we thinking about when they're ready and come in market, that we can really invest in that.
So to really do that effectively, it does also come down to the content side of things as well. So I know you talked a little bit earlier about how do we make sure that we're, eliciting a little more emotion into our marketing efforts and whatnot. When you're advising or giving advice there to any sort of B2B company, how should they be approaching content?
Yeah, this is a huge area, huge opportunity for B2B. I'm actually so excited about this because the brands that choose to really invest here can make a significant difference for themselves. And so just to set the stage of like what we're looking at, we have a research partner called System One, and they do ratings of ads, and they have a system that helps you identify like whether the ad is going to be effective. and they have this system called star ratings, and 5 stars is great, 1 star not so good. And they've tested B2B ads, and in the results, 75% of B2B ads they tested scored 1 star or less. So what that's saying, yes, exactly, huge opportunity. So, that means the majority of this B2B creative is actually ineffective.
Yeah.
It means that your brand is entirely reliant on outspending the category rather than benefiting on the strength of the creative. So investing in creative is a huge opportunity. There's a stat that says great creative is 10 to 20 times more effective at driving sales.
Paul Dyson and Kantar did a report a bunch of years ago where they showed like I forget the exact measurement, but it was like the business impact of different things, and size of the company was number 1, which isn't that surprising. But then creative was number 2, way above things like media mix and targeting and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there are a couple things to invest in, and absolutely what you said, brand size and share, and then creative execution. So when it comes to creative execution, obviously there's no magic formula to get, like, if you do these things, like it'll be great. So, but if you do more of the things probabilistically, you're more likely to have a good ad. So the first thing you want to look at is having a story arc. So, we call ourselves storytellers. We want to think about what is the beginning, the middle, and the end, and having a peak emotional moment. We want to think about characters. So I know B2B marketers are like, characters? Like, why would you do? But they're so key. They're so memorable. If I say Geico, you know what the character is, right?
Yeah.
The character links to the brand, and you can also root for the character to succeed. Next is sound. We don't talk about sound a lot in advertising, but it's a powerful thing. Like, it's an emotional thing. And sound is often the fastest way to make people feel something. And jingles can be very memorable. And then to round things out, emotion, make people feel something. I love that Maya Angelou quote: people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And then finally, fluency. So brand, distinctive brand assets. We want to make sure people attribute the ad that you're sharing to your brand, because then you've done your job, and you can't underbrand. We say overkill is underrated.
I love what, you talked about emotion there again. And I think sometimes what gets misinterpreted is when marketers use emotion, it's like, oh, you need to tug on those heartstrings. You need to make sure you're always trying to connect that way. But it's what you said, it's any emotion. It could be happy. It could be surprise.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, just that warm, fuzzy feeling, because that's not easy for a lot of brands to do. But it's just find that emotion that you want to kind of stay honest against and get after it.
Right.
So yeah, I love that.
Right.
Just on that note, like, there's this, I think, idea from marketers that in order to have an emotional ad, you can't have it well branded. You have to wait till the very end to show your brand. I mean, it's almost like aha, gotcha. You thought there was something else. No, it's just an ad. So, but that's, I think, one of the things that's interesting about what you just said is that it's not like you need to be known for the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's not about like surprising people or catching people off guard with your brand. You kind of need to make that front and center. Is that a fair statement?
There needs to be a connection there, and you do that by investing in distinctive assets over time. So building that fluency, that's something that I think we don't think about often enough. And I know I can't recall the trend right now, but one of the things it talks about is the fact that some people will finish an ad and then it's like, what company was that? I don't know. Right. So that's not what we want to happen.
Interesting.
V, man, like we like to usually end these podcasts with like just a very simple question, which is more, what are those those things? It could be tactics, it could be new trends that you're seeing that marketers should really lean into. I know we're well into 2022 right now, but is there something that you could identify here in the last few minutes that we have with you that marketers should be really leaning into, especially from a B2B perspective?
Yeah. Absolutely. So this is cheating because it captures a lot of things in one thing. Forgive me.
No.
But focus on building mental availability. So I think that's like just a good rule of thumb, like to ask yourself, is what I'm investing in building mental availability? It matters hugely in B2B marketing. Awareness activities are very effective at driving major business effects like increased profit and sales. It's all about being remembered. So you're looking to win the mind, to win the market, knowing that the brand that's remembered is the brand that's bought. So distinctive brand assets, and make sure that your brand is easy to mind and easy to find.
Ooh, easy to mind, easy to
great.
find.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
I'm going to write that down.
I am writing that down.
Ty, thanks so much for your time today. This has just been awesome to chat with you. I can't thank you enough for
my pleasure
sharing all your thoughts and ideas.
So good. So good.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
How can people find more information about you?
Yeah. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And we have a lot of research that you can also connect to. The B2B Institute has a LinkedIn page that you can follow. And then we're also at b2binstitute.org. So any of those three things. And wishing everybody success in your marketing.
Awesome. We'll make sure we'll add the links into the show notes as well.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Ty.
Thank you so much.
Time for the post-pod discussion with Mark and V.
It's a great pod, V.
Ty was a lot of fun. I don't know. I genuinely, not only did I enjoy the conversation, I enjoyed her insights, and she provided a lot of little nuggets there, and I'm sure our listeners will pull them out as well.
Yeah.
And we're here to summarize the conversation as well. But it was just so enlightening, and sometimes I forget that their focus is just B2B, because a lot of the stuff that she says, you can 100% apply to B2C. It's not just B2B. Totally.
Like all the contrarian trends, I think, really do apply to B2C as well.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of the work they do with the Ehrenberg Bass Institute and IPA and all that kind of stuff. A lot of their research was originally published as B2C work, and then they're recutting some of that work to show the B2B evidence. Yeah. And it's repeated in B2B and B2C. So it's not like it's net new and not ever been done before kind of stuff. Like it really is applicable to both sides, B2B and B2C.
I'll be honest, when she talked about the contrarian matrix, I had never even thought about it that way, to be completely honest. And, like essentially the four pairs where you have things contrarian, where there's no return how did she say it?
Right or wrong. And
right.
It's one side of the matrix, and then contrarian or with the crowd or consensus, I think is
consensus. Yeah. And I think when you think about it visually that way, all of a sudden you, as marketers, we could probably use that even more in our day-to-day lives. Like, hey, where are we positioning, say, this idea, this thought process? How are we going to make sure that we can bring people along so they can become consensus in this contrarian style of idea? So I really like that, to be honest.
And the 595 rule that she was talking about, I think is really powerful.
I need to read more about that.
Yeah. And so we talked to Roger Martin, and his whole book is about models and rethinking the models that we just assume to be correct because they've been there for so long. Yeah. And then thinking of a better way to do it. And so their 595 rule to me is one of those ideas where it's a model that builds on the past, which is the AIDA sales and marketing funnel, awareness, interest, desire, action. but applies it in a new way. And that timeline or the time horizon that they're, turning the funnel on its side, literally, and then just saying like, there's in the next 6 months, let's say,
Yeah.
these people are in market, these people, and then at 6 months beyond, these are people out of market. I love that because it changes so much about how you think. So rather than awareness, interest, desire, action, top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel, marketing qualified leads, sales qualified lead, close, like it's a very different but simple idea that has, I think, profound impact.
And it's the reason why the funnel has been easy for marketers to use, to communicate. It's because it's very simple in its structure, right? Yeah. You can visualize it very easily.
Totally.
And I agree with you. Simply by flipping it on side, you can still retain a lot of that, effectiveness in that communication. Say nothing's changed. What we are changing though is we're adding a timeline to this. And we're sitting it on its side. All points are still very, very valid in terms of how we're potentially approaching the consumer.
Yeah.
But it's an evolution. And I think as marketers, we owe it to the discipline to keep pushing those old models, because unfortunately we will continuously go back to them. And then what that creates is like, oh, this is all that marketing does. It doesn't allow for us to have that equal voice that we all want to have, especially in organizations. So how do you evolve that? So something as simple as the funnel, throw it on its side. I think, like you said, they've done an amazing job just kind of putting that together.
Totally. Well, and thinking about the structure of sales and market, or like organizations as a whole as well. Like when you think about the funnel, all roads lead to sales.
Yes.
Right. And so then you become very sales focused and very sales driven, which isn't into itself a bad thing.
No.
But when you flip it on its side and you think about future cash flow, then you go, okay, sales on the left-hand side in terms of structure, that's important. But then you're also thinking about future cash flows and accounting and finance on the right-hand side, which is more brand, and then different metrics like future cash flow. It's like there's so many interesting components to, and it's a bit of a Trojan horse, really.
It is. Think about it. Like we were talking about the exact same thing with Dave, right? Dave Bunce. Don't remember the episode number, but we're talking about like, what is that common language? And Ty talked about, again, finding that common language. And I don't want to say like we have to stretch ourselves into this area, but we have to make a commitment that we need to understand all parts of the business to become more effective marketers. And the sooner marketers realize that is the opportunity, it's not growth within the discipline marketing, like grow in the business. That will make you a better marketer. That's a really good point. And I think that's where we have to make sure that, at least from my perspective, I'm trying to evangelize in my space and where I am right now, get uncomfortable in the same four walls that you're working with everyone else.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Grow in the business. I like that a lot. I'm going to write that down.
Write it down. That was so good. So good.
But also like, take an example of market research. Like often marketers are the ones doing market research. When you look at thinking about the sales funnel, when you look at market research, you go, oh, it's because we want to sell more stuff of what we have. All roads lead to sales. But when you flip the sales funnel on its side and you're looking at the future cash flows, then you're going, there's a market out there. We're trying to understand it better because we want to position ourselves better. We want to learn about the segments that are there clearly, figure out what our targets are. And the strategic part of that is really around deciding who to go after and who not to go after. Then with the positioning and the promotional material, we often think about, okay, top of mind, sure, but it's also future cash flow. Like what markets are we going to want to or which target segments are we going to want to get business from and serve 6, 12, 18 months, whatever it is, 5 years from now. And so that has an implication of beyond marketing, which is not just sell more of that. It could be there's a hole, there's a gap. We don't have the right product to be able to appropriately serve them. We don't have the right organizational structure. We don't have the right support team. So then the market research isn't just about selling more what we have today. It's also about setting up the company for future success as well.
And not only that, if you're thinking about who do we want to target, or what are those other, I don't know, segments that we want to look at from a targeting perspective, that will inform your content strategy as well.
Totally.
And that's another very tangible thing for a marketer. Let's not forget about that. And she provided a great framework, and we can talk about it in a second. But what blew me away was that 75% of B2B ads received a 1-star from the what was
System One.
System One. Yeah. That blew me away. I did not expect that.
I think that's the guy, John, who runs the podcast, the Uncensored CMO. I think he is affiliate. I think he works there.
Well, we should
or
bring
maybe
him on.
runs the company. I can't remember. But anyway, like it's well, and also, and you think about the sales and marketing funnel. Sure, B2C, you've got like these fast turn like conversions, right?
Yeah.
B2B, you've got, it could take years to close a deal. So
totally,
your in market time horizon in B2B actually is a lot longer, and so it's almost like the future. And so especially, and there's a lot of work that's been done by Gartner on like the customer journey in B2B, and then the sort of customer experience, and all the things that go along with that. And some of the work they've found is that B2B buyers are like really not very happy with the B2B buying experience.
Right.
And they spend less than a fifth of their time talking to salespeople. So if you're looking at, the people who are in market today, knowing that the sales process might take 6, 8, 12 months, that may only be the timeline that you see, but they may be in the journey for like 6 to 12 months before that you don't even know about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like thinking about the content and the things that they need earlier in their journey is really interesting as well.
Well, I love what you just said, because then in my mind, at least it triggered what she said. Well, how do marketers in B2B start structuring this a little bit? And she talked about, building a story arc, right? Mm-hmm. Then it's like, think about characters. Mm-hmm. And I think we forget about that as marketers. Like what could we potentially bring in? And I'll be honest, like B2B probably has a lot more flexibility than maybe B2C does with a lot of that. Cause I know a lot of the B2C companies have gone away from the characters or the mascots or things like that. I know Canadian Tire does a great job with their big, their
Canadian Tire guy.
The Canadian Tire guy. I forget, like, is that
Gary?
What he's called? Gary.
I think he's like the third or fourth Gary.
Yeah, but like that is something very tangible, and you remember that, right?
Totally.
Then she talked about sound. How sound can actually elicit the emotion.
Totally.
Then actual emotion, and then finally the fluency. And I think often fluency is something that we forget as well, even on a B2C side. Mm-hmm.
Well, in the B2B space, I know Salesforce uses it. I don't even know what it is, the character that they have, but it's like a...
Oh, yeah. Is it a hedgehog? A groundhog?
I was going to say a rabbit, but it's...
I don't think it's a rabbit.
Like a baby Sasquatch or something. I don't know what it is. But the point is that it's when you see that, I don't need to see Salesforce because I've been looking at it a lot, but it's almost like that same idea between the Nike swoosh and Nike, the word, right? Like the swoosh, is Nike. And in Salesforce's case, the Sasquatch rabbit or whatever. So let's go with that.
His name is Astro, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what is it?
So get to know Astro, Cody, and friends. So there's a series of
characters. A series. It's like the Hamburglar and
Exactly.
But like those things are really distinctive and they stand out, and it is in some cases makes the brand even more flexible because you don't have to have your logo set front and center all the time to be able to let people know that it's your brand.
or to create those memory structures.
Right.
That was amazing. I'm going to read something just from, I just pulled this up when searching for the characters. And then Salesforce actually says on their website here, characters make technology fun and friendly and inspire our users to blaze new trails with Salesforce. Huh. That's a very simple way of saying, like, hey, they've adopted this kind of idea of like how we're going to use these characters to help further our brand. And I would argue Salesforce is probably doing one of the best jobs in their space. And not only building their brand in it. Obviously, I think they're probably industry leading now in a lot of areas, and a lot of companies have adopted their technologies. But it's really interesting to see that they call out the fact that the characters make the technology fun and more accessible and friendly. So that was it's good to see.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you thought there? For me, was like also how she ended the conversation, what I thought was really interesting, and how we B2B need to really kind of focus on building that mental availability, right? Again, it shouldn't be lost on B2C, but let's just keep this, B2B. But
yeah, I mean, you mentioned the brand police, or or something to that effect earlier in the conversation, and I agree with you. Like, it's not marketing's job to be the brand police, but I do think it's marketing's job to ensure the fluency of the brand.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about that time horizon. And what Ty was talking about with like being well branded and to your point, mental availability. I mean, knowing that a B2B buyer, it might take them 2 years to go through their process. So throughout that 2-year span, if you're changing your look and feel every time because of one piece of content is showing up as like a downloadable PDF and it looks like, say, green and has a logo that's out of date, and then you've got this next piece of video which has got a totally different character that's not tied to anything else, and it's like yellow, and then you show up near the sales process and you've got like all your stuff that looks red, and then you know what I mean, like there's that customer doesn't see the coherence of your brand throughout that 2-year window when they're going through their buying journey. And so I think I don't think about it as being brand police now. It's more about being who you are and making sure that you're who, like that you look like you whenever the customer shows up.
You're right, Mark. Honestly, like when and it's not just like looking at it from the fluency, if you will, from the creative perspective. It's also the narrative.
Right.
Are we on tone? Is this what our brand is? The voice that we're choosing to use in this creative or this radio ad, like all these little things, they do play a part. And there's probably no one better equipped than marketers to do it. But if we go back to what Ty was saying, like brand is everyone's responsibility at the organization. So what is that common language that needs to be instilled in an organization to make sure that consistency exists right from the front line to the board of executives?
Totally.
Like, and I think that's, I don't want to say it's missing, but it is missing. I don't know. At least in my experience, you haven't seen that really permeate the entire organization the way you would think it should. And I also love the easy to mind, easy to find.
Yeah, that was so good. It was so good. Honestly, she's so much fun. I would love to talk to her again. Like, she's just so articulate and well spoken, and has like 100%. So many great ideas. Yeah, there's so many things that you could. I'm sure I could pick her brain, like, and all the work that they've done in the B2B Institute. Like, I really want to go back to all that stuff now and just make sure I really understand it all.
Yeah, and really, I know we were prepping for this for the conversation and really looking at ADA and whatnot, but like, I think I want to immerse myself even more in that and understand it even better to see like, hey, how can we apply this? And even sprung a different thought. We had our conversation with Dan White, and he talked about the lazy river, right? And that's another way of kind of imagining what that consumer decision journey, or whatever you want to call it, can be implied. And that's what I love. Marketers out there, challenge Challenge everything. Don't take everything fair face value. Like our job should be to disrupt mind processes, should be to disrupt our discipline and challenge our discipline. Just, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, V. Like, I think really we should be looking at things that work, which is part of what the Contrarian matrix is all about. Like, is it right?
Yeah.
And is it contrarian? Not for the sake of being contrarian, but it has to be right.
It has to be right.
And because there's a lot of things that are just in sort of the invisible forces that shape the way we think, like the funnel, that kind of force us down passive thinking and then operating.
Yeah.
And if it's not delivering a great result, then we should be certainly looking at that. So yeah, I'm with you. I think this is really exciting to talk to people like Dan and Ty and Roger and everyone else we've and Mary, and like, it's great.
It's becoming a long list.
I know, it's good. It's so fun.
This is a lot of fun. Anyways, man, this was awesome once again. Thanks for the great chat.
Yeah, you too. We'll talk soon.
Ciao, ciao.